So at this point in time, it is absolutely no big secret that Microsoft has faced a lot of resistance when it comes to buying Activision in the ABK deal. And their biggest opponents to this whole deal are the FTC and the CMA, and their crazy, irrational, emotional thinking that led them to blocking the deal over cloud gaming. And when these two groups gave their reasons why in the reports, it was clearly obvious that neither regulatory group had any idea what the hell they were talking about. And now industry players in gaming are weighing in on the conversation and wanting to show their support for the deal and giving their opinions. And we're going to outline a few of them right now. So we want to get to the big heavy hitter in the room as quick as we can, but let's start with some of the other frosting on the cake that helps blow the argument of the FTC and the CMA out of the water. And we're just going to start with some of the agreements that Microsoft has recently made with groups like Boosteroid and Nvidia. They have both expressed support for the merger and stating that it would benefit cloud gaming by providing a deeper catalog of games for both services. And Boosteroid in particular has come out and said that they disagree with the CMA's decision and that they hope for a quick resolution when it comes to getting the deal across the finish line. And let's just face it, the CMA believes that they are protecting competition, but for some reason they can't even fathom the idea that they are actually hindering competition and holding back content from services like Boosteroid. And this is where the EU comes into the whole equation. The EU approved the deal because of some of these deals that Microsoft has made with companies like Nvidia and Boosteroid, giving them a 10-year agreement to a free licensing access to Activision games to help bolster their services and give fans an even larger library of games. I am so glad that the CMA was able to see all those results with their magical little crystal ball that somehow says that Microsoft is going to come in and be the monster of cloud gaming and hold their foot on its throat for the next 10 years. So another heavy hitter in gaming that has really weighed in on the conversation is actually considered one of the #1 players in gaming. And no, it's not Microsoft or PlayStation, it's EA. And funny enough, about sometime last year, PlayStation decided to really cut EA down at the knees, claiming that they can't even compete with Call of Duty. And we're just going to start there. Sony claims that no other game can compete or replace the successful Call of Duty franchise. And in their arguments to FTC and CMA regulators, Sony's lawyers specifically criticized Electronic Arts' Battlefield franchise, stating that it cannot keep up with Call of Duty in terms of sales. And they referenced the difference in sales figures, noting that Call of Duty has sold over 400 million copies, while Battlefield has only sold 88.7 million copies. I'm glad to see that 88.7 million is a number to be laughed at. That's actually pretty damn good, but yes, it doesn't hold much weight to 400 million, but still, man, the 88.7 million is not something just to be like, it's okay. But that's where it gets really interesting, because Sony was actually relatively neutral in gaming when it came to criticism of either company, EA or Activision. But since Microsoft has tried to purchase Activision, all of a sudden Sony has gotten rid of neutrality and decided for whatever reason to criticize EA and totally just, because I remember like the CEO of EA coming out and saying that they would love to step up to the plate and help PlayStation have a shooter experience on their console if they're really scared about losing Call of Duty. And that this is the comment that they made, you know, nothing like spitting in the face of the person extending their hand to want to help you. To make it even more ironic about PlayStation's comments to EA, let's just talk about how EA's CEO Andrew Wilson has stated that the completion or termination of the deal is not significant at all to their company. And this is where it gets really funny. EA was the leading publisher for monthly active users on Xbox and PlayStation consoles from September 2022 to January 2023, according to Ampere analysis. EA accounted for over 16% of MAUs during that period, showcasing its consistency in delivering active user share across consoles. Activision and Blizzard experienced engagement bumps in November, coinciding with the release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 at 14.9% and God of War Ragnarok at 7.5%. Meanwhile, EA at a total was still at 15.9% in the month of November. But this is where it gets really great, is in February, FIFA 23 was the game with the highest engagement during the month of February. Users played FIFA 23 on 35% of the days during that month. Final Fantasy XIV and Genshin Impact ranked second and third in terms of user engagement, with engagement rates from anywhere from 31% to 30%. Well, it's good to see that PlayStation played those cards well and really thought things out, because even with Activision selling 400 million copies of Call of Duty, they were still way below user engagement for any game compared to EA. Glad PlayStation really thought that through. So the real iceberg that is going to sink the CMA and the FTC's argument over cloud gaming is going to be Take-Two Interactive's CEO Strauss Zelnick and how he has expressed support over Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. And he had some very interesting things to say. He wanted to point out that the recent ruling by the Competition and Markets Authority against the deal, and they're citing concerns about Microsoft's potential dominance in cloud gaming, were not exactly how he felt that it should be approached, because he doesn't even see cloud gaming as its own market. He wanted to point out that Zelnick reiterated his previous comments that he's been making all along, that cloud gaming is a distribution method and not a separate business model, and should not be confused with a business model. While new distribution methods like cloud gaming might expand the gaming market, Zelnick is uncertain if they would significantly increase the overall size of the gaming market. He does believe, though, that the deal would be positive for Microsoft and the gaming industry as a whole, as the whole acquisition would definitely increase the competition seen in gaming, and competition means everybody wins. At least that's my opinion. But Zelnick's comments didn't really end there, in my opinion. About sometime last year, in June, he made some other comments where he did support PlayStation's decision to not release big exclusive games day and date into a subscription service. He does believe that subscription services can be effective for catalog games, but not for frontline console products. Take-Two has supported subscription services like Xbox Game Pass with legacy titles such as Grand Theft Auto and NBA 2K games, but Zelnick argues that subscriptions don't make economic sense for consumers, and turning the business model upside down is not viable. He believes that a broad-based audience may not want to access hundreds of games in a month at once. If the Microsoft Activision deal does close, though, Take-Two will become the largest the second largest pure-to-play interactive entertainment company in the world. And who is the #1 pure-to-play interactive company? EA. And just for those that don't understand what a pure-to-play interactive company is, that is a company that is invested in gaming and gaming only. They are not like Microsoft with Windows and creating other hardware products like the Surface and Azure, or like Sony with creating televisions and cameras and basically investing in other products to bolster their portfolio of their company. A pure-to-play interactive entertainment company is a gaming company that makes gaming exclusively. So this is actually pretty big that one of the biggest heavy hitters in gaming is wanting to show their support for the deal, and the #1 heavy hitter in gaming is also supporting the deal. So it's really good to see that, you know, Sony has been out there burning bridges left and right, and it's going to be quite interesting going forward. And I also wonder how all those that were out there in the streets just totally like crying and just feeling that the time was right for Sony to purchase Take-Two. How does that make you feel now? The guy who is running Take-Two is basically coming out and saying that they support the deal. Do you really feel Sony's going to want to buy them now? Wonder how that thought process is going to go. So I would like to just point out towards the end of this video is that we actually have no idea what's going to happen at this point with the appeals process and how this deal might unfold in the end. Could anybody really say that this deal is going to be squashed or it's going to go over the finish line? In my opinion, the way I've been describing it for a while now is that this is the wild, wild west of antitrust regulation, because we are at a precedence. There is things taking place in antitrust regulation that we have never seen before in the history of antitrust regulation. I mean, we have regulatory groups that are completely divided. We have the CMA, which is this new independent regulatory group that is out to make a name for themselves since they've separated from the EU. We have the FTC with a crazy person at the helm that is wanting to flagrantly bend rules and twist things to her advantage. And then we have the EU trying to just maintain some sense of logical decision. There has been a number of regulatory groups across the world that have approved the deal, but for some odd reason, we have the CMA and the FTC standing on a hill ready to die on some sword over cloud gaming. I do not know how this deal is going to unfold, but it is good to see that there is a lot of heavy hitters in gaming that really feel that the CMA and the FTC's arguments are completely flawed and the math is wrong. So, if you would like to keep up with more content like this or my crazy antics, please like, subscribe down below and all that crazy fun stuff that YouTube likes to see. And as always, please feel free to leave me a comment or just rant and rave at me in the comment section. I really enjoy everything that everyone takes the time out of their day to put down there. And as always, everybody, please remember, don't fall into the trap in social media. Just play whatever you like on the platform you love. So till next time we meet again, my friends, I am Centurion 1307, and you have yourself a great night.